Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks, to my first little crochet course videos. And in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to do a UK treble crochet, which in the US is a double crochet, and that's where the confusion lies, because in the US they have names for their stitches which are the same names as different stitches that we have in the UK. So for us, a double crochet was the stitch we started with, where we went and pulled up 2 loops and went through 2 loops. And it's that little stitch that we started with, which they call a single crochet. And so their double crochet is our treble crochet. Okay, so it is a taller stitch. Now we've got our 21 chain that we started with on all of our previous videos, but we need to have another one, because for this particular stitch it's quite tall, so you need 2 turning chain. So there's 1, there's 2, and there is the 3rd one. So we're going to go in to the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to yarn over and we're going to go in to that stitch. We're going to yarn over and pull up our loop. So we have 3 on our hook. We're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. Okay, and we're going to do that in every one of our chain. So we're going to yarn over and we're going to go into our next chain. We're going to yarn over and pull up our loop. So we have 3 on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. As you can see, it makes a much taller stitch, and there are gaps between it. That's why I prefer the half treble. Okay, so you can see where you've been. This is our next one. We're going to yarn over. We're going to go into the chain, yarn over and pull up the loop. 3 on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, we're going to do that all the way along. So there's the one we've been into. There's our next one. Yarn over, into that chain, yarn over and pull up the loop. 3 on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the other 2. And that is what it looks like a row of little soldiers. Okay, so we yarn over. There's the one we've been in. This is our next one. We're going to go in, pull up our loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. Now I'm going to hold on to it with my fingers, as I always have done in the previous videos, so you can easily see where we're going next. This is the one. If you pull it, you can see this is our next one. Yarn over, go into that chain, yarn over, pull up the loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. Now if it helps you on this chain row, which I always find is the more difficult, just move your hands. You don't have to hold it in the same position all the time. So you can go in, pull up our loop, and then if you want to, you can move your fingers and you're holding it a bit more securely. Pull through 2, pull through 2. And we're going to do that in every single chain all the way along. I'll do a few more with you. There's the one we've been into. If you lift it up, you can see. Go into the next one. Yarn over and pull up. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so I don't bore you, I'm going to carry on and I'll pick up with you when I've got 2 more left. Okay, so I've made it all the way along. I've just got my last 2 to do, as you can see. So I'm going to go into this next one. And again, don't forget this bit here is the knot of your slip knot. There's your last stitch. So we're going to go in and do our very last UK treble, US double crochet. So there we go. We have a nice row of stitches. Now if you find yours is doing this, then you might need to get a larger crochet hook and do your chain. I deliberately made a tighter chain so that you could see, although I don't think I made it tight enough, but you can see it is kind of fanning out a little bit. So if you get the next size up, so I've got a 5.5 for my tutorials here. I did go into that at the beginning. But if you use a 6, then you'll get a slightly larger chain if you're not used to making them baggy. But I did it on purpose to show you that what will happen if your chain was a little tight. Okay, so this is different from the other stitches that we've done because it's taller. So I'm going to turn my work. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you turn your work now or after you've done your chain, but I like to have it facing the right way when I do my chain. So where we were going into this very first stitch on our previous stitches, we're not this time. We're going to do 2 chain, and that will be our first stitch. Now, some people do 3, but I always think, as I said, I think I said it earlier, I'm not sure, it will bow out a little bit on each row, and I think that's too many. So now this is our first stitch, and it comes from here. So we're not going to go into this one, we're going to go into that one. We're going to yarn over, and we're going to go in and pull up our loop as normal. We're going to yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. So now we've got 2 stitches. Our 2 chain count as our first and this one as our second. We're just going to carry on all the way along, and as we did on the previous videos, we can see where we've got to go in. We can see the V at the top. We know we're going in the right space, and we're just going to carry on with our stitch all the way along. Nice and simple, keeping our tension, if we can, as tight as we possibly, well, not as tight, but as consistent, as that's the word, as consistent as we possibly can. Okay, so this, as you can see, makes a much taller stitch and a much holier stitch, which is one of the reasons I'm not keen on it. Whenever I look at patterns that are made with row after row of it, I just don't like it. So carrying on then, yarn over into this top bit. You can go into here, some people do, but ideally you want to be going into the stitch, unless the pattern that you're working from or the tutorial calls for something else, or the pattern that you're making up. You know, when you get to a certain stage, you'll be possibly wanting to make things that you design. If I go too fast, like I said in my previous videos, just pause it and catch up with me. I could pause it, and I'm nearly at the end now. So this is what it's looking like. This is the back. The first one row of these we did be in the front, and I will show you that in a second. Thought I needed to pull some yarn out, but I don't. Getting near the end, and I want to show you how that looks. So we've got 2 more to do. We've got one which is a normal kind of stitch, and you can see it. So we go into it as normal. Now we have to be careful because we've got our turning chain, and you could mistake them all together. So we're going to yarn over, and we're going to go into that top chain. Doesn't look like a stitch, but we need to do that, and we're going to do that exactly the same, and then we're going to turn our work. And now, if I hadn't made a tight foundation chain, it would be a bit more even, but I wanted to show you what would happen if you had a tight chain. Okay, so again, we do our first 2 chain for our first stitch, and then we ignore this first one here and we go into the second. Just as last round. And you can see that that becomes our last stitch now, or our first stitch and last one to go into. We'll do another row and show you the end again, because it is different from the previous 2 stitches, and I want to make sure that you get that. Okay, so this is the front. That's what I'm trying to say, not the beginning, the front. And you can see that this is the actual front of the stitch, and this is the back of the stitch. So the row that always starts is the front, and this is the back. This one here. But working in rows like this, you always get the front one, the back one, the front one, unless you end off every row, but that would make a ridiculous amount of yarn ends to sew in, and you know, not a fan of sewing in ends. So again, I'm going a bit fast, and if you want to, just pause it, but I want to get to the end and show you what to do and show you how this works up. Make sure you, if you can, to keep your tension consistent. It will help you know where you're going next. That's why I always recommend doing quite a big swatch, quite an extensive one, just to make sure. I do need to pull yarn out now. Just to make sure you you know where you're going, and it becomes like second nature to you. Okay, so that was our last proper stitch. We've got our turning chain. So there's our first one, there's our second one. So the first chain, the second chain. We're going into this second one, the top one. It's always the smallest, which is annoying, but we get in there and we make our last stitch. Okay, so if I pull up my loop and I make my work flat, you can see I've used a 5.5. This yarn says the ideal size hook is a 5, but I wanted to show you with a 5.5 so it was easier to show you where you're going. And some people might like using a 5.5 with an Aran 4-weight yarn, but that's what it works up like. Again, we're now working on the reverse side, where the majority of the rows that hit your eye are the back. And we just carry on make a swatch and get used to doing the UK treble crochet or US double. So, you know, like I said, make sure if you're following a pattern or a tutorial, you know which terms they are working in, because otherwise it can cause a few problems along the way. That's the UK treble. Next video, I'll be showing you how to do a double treble. And in the double treble, you can imagine what the Americans call that. They call that a treble. So you can see how the trebles can get you into trouble. Sorry about that. Couldn't resist it. But yeah, again, another term which they use, which is a different stitch for us. So we call it a double treble. They call it a treble. So I will show you that next. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.